Hi, I'm Cailey, a librarian here at Mentor Public Library.
And I'm Meg, also a librarian, and welcome to this week's edition of All Booked Up with Cailey and Meg, where each week we give you different book recommendations related to a specific theme. Now this week, we're going to do something a little different, and I don't think we've ever done it before, which is teen audiobooks. So we've never done audiobooks, have we, Cailey?
No, I think we've mentioned audiobooks here and there, but we haven't done a just audiobook.
I know, so I'm really excited. I'll be full disclosure today. Actually, audiobooks are my favorite way to read books. I think they're great, whether you're multitasking or whether you need help focusing. For me, it helps me focus actually, because my mind can go a million places while I'm reading. So having someone like tell me, okay, we're going to keep moving on. Don't reread the sentence like 3 times. So I love audiobooks for that reason. But
I do like audiobooks too. I usually have at least one audiobook going just for my commute, which isn't that long, so sometimes it takes a while. But I enjoy being told the story through performance at times, especially when you have some really great narrators on board.
Yes.
I think that there are times, though, that I have not enjoyed a book on audio if the narrator is not very good.
Makes or breaks it.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
But so today's theme of teen audiobooks, all of our books are available for you in the library through CleveNet, as well as online through Libby and Hoopla, which if you've not checked out Hoopla, it is a really great resource for audiobooks. In particular, like teen materials on Hoopla, there's a ton of stuff.
Absolutely.
All right, so Meg, start us off.
So my first audiobook is probably the first one that actually really got me into audiobooks. So it's a teen classic. It's Speak by Laurie Halse Anderson and narrated by Mandy Siegfried. So this is one I actually read probably the first time in library school. So, a couple of years ago. And it is still to this day maybe my favorite. So it shows the highlights of audiobooks because the girl who does it, Mandy Siegfried, she has this perfect way of encapsulating the character, in my opinion. So this book is a heartbreaking, but also I think hopeful story about a teen named Melinda Sordino. Melinda is just beginning high school, but she's already an outcast from the very beginning. And her tone is cynical, sarcastic. That's kind of the attitude she has towards all of her classmates. And it suggests that she's just apathetic, but really it may be masking something altogether different. And whether you've read it or not, I kind of don't want to share any more beyond that, because the first time I listened to this, I thought one of the best things about it was the gradual unveiling of Melinda's character and her true thoughts and feelings. I will say, however, that by the end, you will be rooting for this character as much as any other character ever. My heart was just bleeding for her in this book. And I think a big part of that is Mandy Siegfried's narration for me, because that was the first time I heard this story was through the audiobook. And, and the character, Melinda, starts out all these like sarcastic comments and all this. And in the narration, she just leaves this tiny crack where you just start to think, okay, I know she's being sarcastic, but what's really going on underneath the surface? What is Melinda suppressing even in her own mind? And I thought that was fascinating to listen to. And it's 5 hours and 48 minutes, the audiobook. So I think it's kind of on the shorter end. So if you've never listened to an audiobook, it's an emotionally compelling, sometimes, kind of heavy read. But since it's not that long, I think it's a nice starter to get used to audiobooks. So.
Sure, yeah. And I know I have read that book myself a couple times, and I know that it's one that is often read by our local schools here. So it is definitely one that really sticks with you.
Yeah.
I might have to check it out on audio just to revisit it.
Exactly, yeah.
So my first book is called Aristotle and Dante Discover the Secrets of the Universe by Benjamin Alire Saenz. And when you suggested this topic, this was the first book that came to my head. Not only was it just an excellent teen audiobook, it was just one of the best audiobooks I've ever listened to.
Okay.
And that is in large part because it was read by Lin-Manuel Miranda of
Wait,
Hamilton fame.
so Demon Man. Oh my goodness. I didn't know. That's cool.
Yes, and he does an amazing job of instilling this book with a lot of emotion and
Yeah.
heart. So the book is about Aristotle, whose nickname is Ari. He's a 15-year-old boy who sort of keeps to himself and doesn't really feel like he needs other people because he doesn't really fit in with them.
Yeah.
His home life is different than anyone else's he knows. He's much younger than his older siblings.
Yeah.
His father is a war veteran who has a lot of residual issues from that. And his older brother is in prison, and his family did not talk about that. So he has a bit of stress just from being sort of outcast, and part of that he's brought on himself. He feels like his life is just different from kids his age. And he meets Dante, who really makes him see the world a little differently. And Dante is this sensitive, inquisitive boy who on the surface like should not mesh with Ari at all, but the two of them just sort of bring out each other.
Yeah.
Dante takes the time to actually try to understand Ari and his life and try to force him outside of his comfort zone. Both boys are Mexican Americans and sort of struggle with that identity and what that should mean for them or if it should mean anything. And over the course of the book, this is really like a coming of age story about the different struggles and the big things that are going on in their lives, those huge questions that you sort of have when you're a teenager about where you fit into the world and if you fit into the world. But their friendship helps keep them both grounded. And they have a beautiful relationship. And this book has won a bunch of awards, including, I think, one for audiobooks. It's beautifully written and such a powerful story. And I did have the pleasure of seeing the author through a virtual conference at one point, and he speaks the way he writes. He's a beautiful speaker.
Wow. That's really cool. And I think that is I really books about like like feeling like an outcast or an outsider. I think that's so interesting. There's so many people in the world, but yet these kind of stories seem to have such universal appeal. Yeah. And then Lin-Manuel Miranda. I mean, come on, that's just cherry on top. So sounds really good.
Yes.
So mine next choice, I was laughing even while I was writing about this because it's Batman Nightwalker by Marie Lu and
Mm-hmm.
narrated by Will Damren. Now, I chose this, it's just so ridiculous, but it's an audiobook about a 17-year-old Bruce Wayne whose biggest threat is a mysterious girl whose intrigue belies the fact that she may be Gotham City's worst enemy. So Marie Lu is actually a best-selling YA author. She has a lot of big series and
Yeah, I'm
things.
familiar with her name.
Exactly. So that was part of the appeal. The other thing is it's kind of a unique premise to listen to a story about superheroes. So we know there's comics and movies and TV shows. We're familiar with that, but like
Mm-hmm.
listening it to an audiobook without seeing images, it almost reminded me of like the old radio days where you'd listen to the Lone Ranger and hear about your favorite character, you know?
That's
So
true, yeah.
sounds like a retro. I love retro stuff. So it just is kind of giving me that kind of a vibe. So which I thought was kind of cool to have to imagine what Batman's doing instead of seeing it. But so anyway, Bruce Wayne, as I said, he's 17 years old. And this time his main threat are the Nightwalkers, a mysterious group terrorizing Gotham City. And he's doing a pretty decent job until he meets Madeline Wallace, a brilliant girl who kind of has some shady ties with the Nightwalker, so he doesn't entirely trust her, but he's still intrigued nonetheless. So they have this really cute, like cat and mouse banter where he thinks he's getting more information about the Nightwalkers, but is it actually that he's unwittingly giving her secrets that will put harm in Gotham City's way? So it's a cute little story like that, but you'll have to find out the mystery. You'll have to listen to Will Dameron's cool Batman voice to find out. So he did a great job. Like he has this like husky, low like Batman voice. So it was
That sounds awesome. I love the idea of young Batman.
I know.
That's definitely something that I think would be fun to explore. And you're right, it
Yeah.
does kind of give you that radio vibes when you listen to an audiobook in general.
Yeah.
And in particular, if you're listening to someone like with a very like familiar character to you, you
Yes.
can kind of picture that yourself.
Yeah.
So my next book is called Broken Things by Lauren Oliver, and the audiobook is narrated by Sarah Drew and Erin Spencer.
Okay.
And this book is a creepy mystery, and on audio, it somehow manages to like amp up the suspense.
Yeah.
When I was first looking at reviews for this book to prep for today, I saw so many people who were like, had this in one sitting.
Oh.
So it's definitely one that catches you and sticks with you.
Yeah. Cool.
So 5 years ago, three girls went into the woods and only two came out. Everyone thinks that Mia and Bryn killed their friend Summer because of their obsession with this magical fantasy novel that somehow led them to murder. But the proof wasn't there, and the girls swear they didn't do it.
Yeah.
So now we're 5 years later, and Mia and Bren have not spoken to each other since this happened. One big part of the mystery for them is what happened to their secret hideout, which was a shack in the woods that the girls had decorated and wallpapered to resemble this place from their book obsession. The day after Summer's murder, the shack was back to being a dusty and abandoned shack with no sign of the girls' decorations or anything. So that's one big thing. So Bryn has been living in a rehab facility this whole time since Summer's murder, obviously very affected by what had happened. Finally released, she reconnects with Mia sort of reluctantly, who still lives with her mother, who is a hoarder in a very crowded home. And with the release from rehab, the girls connect and they finally begin to discuss what happened all those years ago. And it soon becomes clear that both of them have kept secrets from each other as well as from the police in their investigation. And so they start to sort of piece together on their own what they think may have happened that day. As they get closer to solving the mystery, they uncover some things that probably should have stayed hidden. And it's just really sucks you in. I don't want to give anything away there.
Yeah.
It is this really fast-paced mystery. It sort of blends some stuff that happened in the past with what's happening in the present, and having the dual narrators really helps you kind of get into the minds of these two girls. And what's interesting too is like as you are learning what's happening, like you're sort of kind of uncovering things that they're not saying as well. And having the two different narrators, like you know what Mia knows, you know what Bryn knows, but they don't necessarily know what the other knows, and they're kind of learning along the way.
Man, that sounds really gripping. And like you said, I think audiobook is really lends itself to audiobook because it's almost like you said, like a radio kind of mystery, like what's gonna happen. Yeah. I would that's the perfect type of book that I would love to listen to, just because it's like I'm not gonna stop until I find out what happened. That's how it usually works.
Yes, definitely. So it's, I mean, I think it would have been better if I had brought this one up like in October, but it's still good anytime.
It still counts. You could still do it. Well, thank you guys for listening to our talk about audiobooks. Hopefully this gets you into it if you haven't listened to audiobooks before, or if you have, maybe we gave you some new ones to try. So thank you. And next week, it's beginning to look a lot like the holidays. So we're going to be doing holiday reads, which is always so fun. Love this time of year. Got our Hallmark ready and all that. So we're going to give you some good reads, all related to anything holidays. So we'll hopefully have some fun with that.
Yes, it should be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining us, and happy listening and happy reading.